All right. Hi, Founder fans. Welcome to Trivia, Friday Trivia, here at Founder of the Day. We are doing pretty much what we did last week, except this week we're going to be doing it appropriately. By which I mean, we're starting on time and I haven't messed up and come on half an hour late and talked to myself for half an hour. Either way, what we are doing is we are going to ask 12 questions from this set that I have. American Revolutionary War Trivia. It is generally focused more on the war, although they do get questions about the Declaration and stuff thrown in there so far. We're going to go through 12 of them because there's 48 in the deck, and 12 seemed to fit last week, so we're going to do that again. It is great fun. I have not read the questions yet because I want to quiz myself and I want to be embarrassed when I don't know something. I am going to I'll ask the question and then I'll kind of procrastinate for about 10 seconds to give you a chance to answer in the comments. And then I will start giving my answer and we'll read the back and see if I'm right. And I am going to sweeten the pot a little bit. But while people roll in, while we get started, I'm going to wait to see if a few more people show up. I did want to show you guys this that my spouse got from a friend of ours' mother, Kathy Parker. Thank you, Kathy. This is some kind of Birth of a Nation mug. I know the lights reflect on it kind of bright, but I assure you it is cool. It is the painting of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Hi everyone rolling in. I'm just kind of stalling while a few people show up, showing this cool mug I got. It is a Miller High Life mug, Birth of a Nation. It has 1885 to 1992, which seems to be when Miller was a company, and it seems to be made in 1992. My favorite part about this American thing is it's made in Brazil. I like my American propaganda made in foreign countries. I don't know about you. I think that's hilarious. It's actually really nice. It pops out. It also has two copies of the what appears to be the Pennsylvania State House. And I won't waste any more of your time. I just got that yesterday, so I thought it was really cool and figured if I'm going to share with someone, it would be with Founders fans. I thought you might appreciate that a little bit. So if you guys are ready, hi Ned, what's going on? The sound seems a bit low. Oh, am I quiet? Can you hear me? Let me see. I will, first of all, move this closer. Does that help? And I will actually raise my gain. Thank you for pointing that out, Ned. I've been experimenting with the program the last few days. I have been doing interviews for a while, and I hope to start doing interviews again. But with the new programming I've set up, I've had a little bit of trouble with using Skype to get people in and get the volume right. So I've been playing with my volume. I hope that's better. Please let me know. The worst thing in the world would be to have you not hear me. As I've learned, okay, thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. As I've learned, viewers are more concerned about hearing me than seeing me, and that's YouTube in general. Fun fact, before trivia, YouTube viewers, myself included, like to hear what's going on more even than see what's going on, because perhaps, you're doing dishes, you throw on one of my videos and listen to it. That's fine. I'm nothing much to look at. For some reason, my eyes look really red today. I apologize. But I am not going to pick up my phone. I meant to pick up these cards because we are about to do trivia. And guess what? I actually have a prize. It's not the best prize in the whole world, but it's from my favorite purveyor of American Revolution merchandise, Liberty & Co., and it is a magnet of George Washington's headquarters. I know things are hard to see because my lights are bright and very hot, but this is the George Washington headquarters flag. It's a magnet. I don't know if I have anything to stick it on. There, it sticks to my cup. There, it works. See? So I'm gonna do my best to keep track. And if we have a tie, well, I'm sure I can find another magnet to send out to you guys. So if you want to get started, now would be the time. I'm gonna have a quick sip of my coffee because I'm very tired because it's, a Friday night and I got some talking to do. Anyway, let's get down to it. And as you guys roll in, if you want to hit like, that is the most fantastic thing you could ever do for me. Let's ask, and again, for those of you just showing up, I don't know the answers to these questions. I'm going to give you a few seconds to type in your answer. Let's start with George Mason. Who was George Mason? Why did he refuse to sign the United States Constitution after he helped to create it? Okay, let's see what you guys got. George Mason. gives a little bit of a hint away. The fun fact about Mason is he's one of 3 people who at the Constitutional Convention stayed for the whole thing and was there in the room when everyone was signing it. But George Mason, along with Edmund Randolph and Elbridge Gerry, sat there and watched everyone else sign it. And this is very difficult for me because I just wrote about Edmund Randolph. I want to say Pendleton, and I know that's not right. I just wrote about Edmund Randolph recently, and I was just reading yesterday about Elbridge Gerry and his reasons for not signing it. So although I'm a little bit out of practice on George Mason, if you guys want to throw an answer in, go ahead. I believe he was, well, first of all, George Mason was one of the leading founders in Virginia. He didn't travel outside Virginia very much. He never really appeared on the national stage, a lot because he didn't like the Constitution, and also because at the time he was focusing on Virginia, because throughout the Revolution and the first several, almost decade under the Articles of Confederation, well, your state was more important than the national government, which the Articles of Confederation simply was not. It was not a national government. That's why no one really cared too much about it. And that's why someone like George Mason, from my perspective, really would not love the Constitution. Although Mason, if I'm not mistaken, was very particular about a Bill of Rights. Pendleton and Rutledge, I believe, Pendleton and Randolph, I believe, were very interested in things like having another convention to support it. Several complaints. And I will say, I'm a little bit twisted on my words right now because, as we'll talk about on Wednesday, today I published an article by an anti-federalist under the pseudonym Philanthropus. And Philanthropus was an anti-federalist, but a month later there was a pro-federalist, I'll call him, also under the pen name Philanthropus, who published a paper basically saying between Gerry, very specifically calling out Gerry, Mason, and Randolph for not agreeing about what they disagreed with. That being said, let's see what I got right and wrong. And I do see, Adam, you put something here. What is it? Mason wanted to keep the Articles of Confederation, too much federal power. And Ned's guessing George Mason had a university named for him in Fairfax County, but that's all I really know about him. Well, I don't think that's the answer, Ned, but you're right. There is a university named after George Mason. Let's see. They give us lengthy answers, so let's see what they have to say. George Mason was an influential statesman and founding father of the United States. In 1787, he went to the Constitutional Convention to revise the Articles, yada, 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 a task which he actively and eagerly participated in. However, after the Constitution was drafted, largely by James Madison, Mason was among just 3 of the 42 delegates who refused to sign, and he went on to urge his native Virginia not to ratify. Mason was wary of giving too much power to the federal government. He also concerned that individual liberties had not been adequately protected. He wrote a statement of objections to the Constitution, outlining many concerns with the document. The first was, there is no Declaration of Rights. Although he did not succeed in derailing the Constitution's ratification, a Bill of Rights was soon amended and added to it. So, yes, I feel like I was right. He called it the Declaration of Rights, and I did neglect to acknowledge George Mason was the primary author of Virginia's Declaration of Rights when they wrote their Constitution during the American Revolution. And that's why he was one of the reasons he was so attached to a Declaration of Rights, though also acceptable is Virginia giving up too much power to the federal government. So, we're going to give that one to Adam Lewis, because you gave us, this sounds low for me, but tolerable. Well, you know what? I'm going to give you a little more power, a little more juice. How's that? How's that? I'll also try and speak louder. And I'm going to keep my notes here. Adam, I'm giving you a point. 1. So everyone better start trying, or Adam's going to run away with this. Although I'm sure people will pop in and out as we go. That being said, shall we proceed to the second question? What part did Betsy Ross play in the design of the American flag? This is a tricky question. And guys, please let me know if I'm still too quiet. I did turn up my gain a little bit. I don't want to be too quiet. Yes, Adam. Woohoo. You're doing quite well. Quite well at this point. What part did Betsy Ross play in the design of the American flag? Now, this is a bit tricky. Before I even flip over this card, we get the Betsy Ross story from one of her grandsons about 100 years after the American Revolution. Now, Betsy Ross was assuredly, she was related to George Ross, who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. And she assuredly designed a flag for the United States. But her role in creating the design itself is questionable. She was paid to make flags, as many seamstresses were in Philadelphia at the time. Now, famously, George Washington rolled in and said, "Betsy, my closest friend in the whole wide world, who I love more than my own wife and parents, make me the American flag." That's the legend it has grown into. I'm sorry to break the bad news to you, but that is not precisely how it went down. But let's see what the card has to say. No one really knows. Thanks a lot, card. What kind of trivia question is this? Oh, here's the question. The answer? I don't know the answer. I'm just a trivia question card. Okay. No one really knows. According to legend, Elizabeth Grisham Ross, or Betsy, designed and sewed the first American flag, featuring red and white stripes and white stars arranged in a circle on a blue background. Ross's descendants propagated this family story, but scholars have been unable to verify it. What is known is that on June 14th, 1777, Congress passed the Flag Resolution, mandating that the official flag of the new country have a design of 13 alternating red and white stripes and a united cluster of 13 white stars, each representing a colony, presented on blue. The arrangement of the stars, though, was unspecified. Before that resolution passed, the Patriots made use of many different flags, including the British Union flag created in 1606 and a red flag that symbolized rebellion. Ross, a Philadelphia seamstress, did make flags. There is documentation showing she was commissioned to sew one for the State Navy Board of Pennsylvania. But whether she stitched the stars and stripes remains uncertain. So let's see. Turn up the gain. I will turn it up more for you, Ned. Not a problem. Not a problem. The right answer is none. Lauren, unfortunately, seems like you're right. I'm going to put you down. And I did not forget, Lauren, your question about tattoos, which I will get to after the questions. If you stick around, I do plan on talking about that. Thank you for that. Lauren, 1. Okie dokie do. And to remind you guys, we are playing for a magnet with Washington's headquarters on it. So, yeah. Now, as for Betsy Ross, as I said, and as the card mentioned, she did end up, and I put it right back there. No, I'm going to put that in a separate pile so I don't read it again. She did, her story came from her grandson. She did sew flags, assuredly, but, the design itself probably came from Francis Hopkinson, who was a signer of the Declaration and a very important founder and kind of the artist of the founders. He wrote several, he was a songwriter and a poet, in addition to his public duties. Interestingly about Betsy Ross, and I don't remember exactly, I don't remember if she had more than one husband, but she definitely lost at least one husband who went to fight in the Revolutionary War and was killed fighting for his country. If I'm not mistaken, there was a second husband, but I don't believe he passed away fighting in the war. We'll have to look that up. I'll have to get back to you on that. Okie dokie. Take a quick sip, and we are going to do another question here. I don't know if you're having fun, but I'm having a great time. Match the group's nickname to the side each fought for. Okay, it's like a multiple choice question. Oh, okay. I am going to name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to say 7 names, and we have to say if it's a Patriot or British. I'm not sure how we're going to do this in the comments. Okay, here's what it is. It's, each one is A, B, C, D. So put A and then either Patriot or British, and then B, Patriot or British. And then we can add them up. It'll be a multiple choice. Okay, so A, the Lobsterbacks. Were they Patriot or British? Again, write an A and then say Patriot or British for the Lobsterbacks. B, the Shirtmen. Were the Shirtmen Patriot or British? C, Brandt's Volunteers. Patriot or British? D, Kingsbirds. Patriot or British? E, Jaegers. Patriot or British? F, Butler's Rangers. Patriot or British? And finally, G, the Green Mountain Boys. Patriot or British? Okay. I'm going to go back through it and say my answers. A, Lobsterbacks. Lobsterbacks are British, a.k.a. the Redcoats. They wore red. Lobsterbacks was a taunt. B, the Shirtmen. I have no idea. I would assume the Shirtmen would be Patriots because it sounds very unofficial. Sounds something like guys who just kind of grabbed the shirts they had. C, Brandt's Volunteers. That is associated with Joseph Brandt, who was a Native American chief, would become a Native American chief, who I believe was related to the Johnsons of upstate New York. And Joseph Brandt most certainly fought with the British. He was often accused of being associated with atrocities in upstate New York, not far from where I live, although it doesn't, that is questionable how involved with the actual, atrocity part he was involved in, but he definitely led troops in this area. D, the Kingsbirds. Again, no idea. Would have to say probably British because the king. E, Jaegers. Jaegers were definitely British. They were primarily Hessian mercenaries. I don't know if any actually British people served as Jaegers, although there may have been crossover I'm unaware of. F, Butler's Rangers. Butler's first name is eluding me, but they were they were British. They were part of, I think they counted as Queen's Rangers, but I'm not entirely certain. And then G, the Green Mountain Boys. The Green Mountain is in Vermont, and the Green Mountain Boys are Ethan Allen and Seth Warner, and technically were not on any side for quite a while, but they were on their own side, and they were certainly Patriots. So let's bounce around to the other side, and let's see what we got right. And I do see I see you guys throwing in answers. Nice. Okay, we have. It starts. Oh, okay, it's out of order. Great, thanks a lot. Okay, Lobsterbacks was a derogatory term for British soldiers. Let's see. A, Brits. Adam and Lauren, you both got it. Number 2, the Shirtmen. Shirtmen refer to riflemen from Virginia who refused to wear military uniforms and instead on a plain shirt with belted with a knife or a tomahawk. Oh, cool. They used a knife or a tomahawk for their belt. That's pretty sweet. So the Shirtmen were Patriots, and that was B. So, Adam, you got it. And B, Lauren, you left it blank. But I'm going to go with Patriots. Good. C, okay, so Brandt's Volunteers. Oh, no. Yeah, okay, we did the Lobsterbacks. Did I screw this up? No, we're going in order. Brandt's Volunteers. Brandt's Volunteers was, as I said, Joseph Brandt. He served with the British, and that was C. And you guys have CC. Both got it. No, oh, wait, no. You both got it wrong. At least you're still tied. D. Oh, got a fly coming in here. Okay. Just had a bug land on my microphone. That's embarrassing. D, the Kingsbirds. The Kingsbirds referred to British officers in particular. Okay, that's why they were the birds. So British, and we are looking at, for D, Adam, you got it. And D, Lauren, you left it out. So I'm going to give that one to Adam. He's up by 1. It's close. The Jaegers, E. Jaegers were German mercenaries who fought with the British, as I said. So that was E. Lauren, oh, Adam, you got it. Adam's starting to run away with it. F. Butler's Rangers. Butler's reign is John Butler, Major John Butler, who was a Loyalist leader from Connecticut, who did fight with the British. You got it. Adam, you are runaway. Do you have this deck of cards? Because you sure seem to know. Sure seem to know all the answers. And G was the Green Mountain Boys, as we said. All right, man. Sorry, Lauren. Looks like Adam's stepping away. But that's okay. We're here to learn. This is fun. But this channel's for learning. And I am too. As I just did about the Kingsbirds. Now I know. Adam, point number 2. Now I know all about the Kingsbirds. Although, Lauren, you do get half a point for participating. You did leave a few answers out, but that's okay. People strolling in, you still got plenty of time to catch up. We're only 3 questions in, so we got 9 more to go. Plenty of time to catch up to Adam. Blow right past. Sorry, bud. I know people like to play to win. This is America. Anyway, next question. Hopefully it's not a multiple choice one. That one was a lot more difficult than it seems to have to be. Who undertook a midnight ride on horseback longer than Paul Revere's to alert the Patriots that the British had moved into Danbury, Connecticut? Who, I forgot I'm not supposed to look, who took a longer ride than Paul Revere's, if I'm not mistaken, about 40 miles, to inform people the British were moving on Danbury, Connecticut? And while we say this, I believe the name was William Tryon, was the former governor of New York. It was the former governor of New York. I am going to look because I need to know the name. Is it on here? No, of course it doesn't have the name. Anyway, the British decided to move on Danbury, Connecticut, because Connecticut was used for a lot of storehouses. It was kind of like, almost like Jersey, like a crossroads of the Revolution. So there wasn't a lot of strategic forts or places to be won when it comes to winning the war. So that's why the Patriots thought it was a good idea as a place to store manufactures and food and clothing and guns and all the stuff you need to win a war. The Patriots like to store in around the country, but in Connecticut. Didn't stop the British from trying to make a move and taking one of these storehouses, one in Danbury, Connecticut. And I think this is where it's time. Oh, I see a question coming in while you guys write your answers. I think you recently wrote an article about the guy, but you can't recall his name. I did write an article recently about someone who did take a trip like this, but it was not a he. Gotcha. Thank you for reading that. I really appreciate that. But today, in Danbury, Connecticut, is the giveaway here, because there were dozens of riders with dozens of reasons other than Paul Revere across the country, and arguably some of Paul Revere's most important rides were not the one at Lexington and Concord. But today's hero in this question, we are looking for Sybil Luddington. There it is, Cal Jack, right before I said it, getting it in. Well done, Cal Jack. Yes, I did talk about Adam. I did talk about Prescott recently. You're right. That might be what Ned was thinking of. In one of my recenter videos, I did talk about, might have been last week, actually, we were talking about Prescott. But no, we're talking about Sybil Luddington. Now, full disclosure, the story of Sybil Luddington may be a little similar to the Betsy Ross story, where there's nothing really confirming that it actually happened. I'm sorry. This is the worst part about talking about, women and to verify any of this happened. That being said, Sybil Luddington, apparently, her father, I'm having a little bit of a breakdown. Uh-oh. We having some trouble here? Oh. Okay, we're back. We are back. Well, I apologize if you guys experienced a little bit of buffering. I just saw it buffering on the side. But let's get back to it. Sybil Luddington. Sybil Luddington, as the story goes, her father was fighting in the Revolutionary War. He was a Minuteman, as we discussed in the question last week. There were Minutemen not just in Massachusetts, but also in Connecticut. Then the Minutemen were called out to go stop the British from coming and taking the storehouse at Danbury, Connecticut. Sybil Luddington, her father was an officer, and he went and got his men. And Sybil, as the story goes, at 16 years old, got on her horseback during a storm. It's always during a storm. And she rode off into the night and rode 40 miles and alerted the men on the countryside. Now, they didn't make it there in time to stop the British from taking the storehouse, but they got there about when other patriots did to chase the British away. And it was a running battle, I believe it's called. So as the British are fleeing, the men that Sybil Ludington alerted to the event were chasing the British and firing on them as they ran away. Now, this is actually the same battle that, and they were not alerted by Sybil Ludington, but Benedict Arnold was yet again shot and did have a horse shot out from under him and did have it land on his leg again in Danbury, Connecticut. And David Wooster, who's a much underappreciated American founder, who was appointed a brigadier general in the Continental Army, though he seems to have passed over that opportunity to stay as a in the Connecticut militia. He was a major general in the Connecticut militia, so he stuck with the major general in the Connecticut militia instead of what some might have considered at the time an inferior role as a brigadier general in the Continental Army. That being said, that's the story of Sybil Ludington, and she did go and get her, I believe that in lower upstate New York, I'll call it, they have put out markers for the trail she rode, or the alleged trail she rode. Again, it's hard to know exactly the trail she would have taken if she did take a trail, because documentation is very, very meek, and she rode very, very far. It's not like Paul Revere took that one road to Concord, or to Lexington from Boston, while not Prescott, William Dawes took the other road. She went through the backwoods, which is very interesting. And I do want to mark down, it looks like Cal, you got one. Plenty of time to catch up. For those of you popping in late, we're only what, 4 questions in. You can still win this sweet magnet I got. It's a magnet of Washington's headquarters flag. Super fun. I'm gonna take a quick sip of my coffee so I can keep talking so much and read what you guys are posting. My wife featured her in a meeting of her Bonnie's Crew Women's Historical Society. That's really cool, Lauren. Where's her society based out of? I would love to know. I'm fascinated by that. And yeah, Sybil Ludington is a really fascinating character. I will say, Ned, I have published an article on her a while back, and it is, when I publish my articles at the bottom, I usually link to like related articles, so I may have popped it in there, and that might have been what you're thinking of. Great. 4 questions down, 8 to go. Plenty of time to catch up. I mean, Adam's in the lead with 1, or by 1 with 2. So, it can happen. Okay, here's a fun question. It's going to be tough. Audio stream. My bit rate is low. I hope you guys are doing Q's. Hi, Scoosamy. Welcome. Oh, California. Awesome. Very cool. I don't know why. I live on the East Coast, and part of me is like surprised when people on the West Coast are into the American Revolution, and then I immediately realize, no, like, they're from America, man. Come on, get your head together. I'm very East Coast centric. I apologize for my elitism. Now, this is a great question. Did black soldiers fight for the British or the Revolutionaries? I'll give you a second to think about it. Did black soldiers fight for the British or the Revolutionaries? I'll take another sip of actually water instead of coffee because I'm starting to get a little red in the face under these lights with my collar on. I didn't turn the heat off. I turned it on to warm up, just like last week. Warm up the room before I come in. Now it's way too hot. Here's the answer. This is a trick question. Yes, Matt and Lauren coming in hot with the right answers. Did black soldiers fight for the British or the Revolutionaries? They fought for both. Come on. I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk down like that. No, that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to talk down to people. They fought for both. Now, for many black soldiers, first of all, the British essentially said, if you're a slave, they did what Lincoln would do with the Emancipation Proclamation, almost 85 years later. They said, if you come fight for us, we'll give you your freedom. And many did, because that sounded very nice to slaves. Why wouldn't it? It sounded very nice to black people who weren't slaves also, because of the slavery thing, primarily. But also for the Loyalist thing. I mean, at the time, no, we have a king for a reason. Why wouldn't you have a king, right? So many black soldiers did fight with the British, but a very large amount of black soldiers did fight for the Americans. I think we might have discussed this recently, especially in the Northeast in New England, where slavery was much less of a mass institution. In the Northeast, slavery was generally viewed as a slave was a member of your family primarily. Even like the wealthiest people in New England would max out at like, I mean, 10 slaves would have been a ton, like way more than most people had at the time. There are, of course, exceptions, but because of this, many African Americans felt like they were fighting for their rights too in New England. Now, in the South, there was a shocking amount of black people who for example, Armistead, James Armistead is a great example, who asked his master if he could go fight with the Patriots, did, and then went back to be a slave. And it seems to be that he was fighting, again, for the ideals of liberty that the Americans were at least stating they as a goal. You know, as the Declaration of Independence, its goal might not have been everyone's equal right now, but it set lofty goals for, from my perspective, mankind in general. So let's see what they actually have to say. Both, pretty much. British and Patriot armies made use of black soldiers, but both sides also wavered in their support for black troops, at times recruiting them and at other times barring them from military service. On the Patriot side, some blacks were free men who volunteered to serve, while others were offered up as substitutes for white men drafted into revolutionary militias. That's interesting. I should have pointed that out. That in many states, it went state by state in your recruitment for your militia. Many wealthier men actually gave their slaves up to fight in their stead. Many British commanders conducted raids in southern colonies to collect slaves, depriving colonists of manpower that could be used against them in battle. Slaves also sometimes ran away to the British, hoping for a better life. They were often promised freedom in exchange for honorable service, a pledge that was not always kept. In reality, while some slaves did manage to gain freedom, many were returned to their masters after the war, while others ran the risk of being resold into British colonies like the West Indies, where sugar plantations were in high demand. It's interesting. The card's answer went with the South, and my answer went with the North. I don't know what that says about me. I apologize. I guess I'm just more attracted to the, I don't want to say happier stories, but the stories that have the more freedom, perhaps. But let's see. We have several people got this answer right. I'm going to check them off real quick. We got Adam popping in there, keeping his lead. Lauren, keeping right up there. Matt, there you are, dude. Yep. Matt's catching up. And Troy popped in. Hey, Troy, how's it going, man? Thanks for coming. Okay, now, Troy, with the question, were black soldiers fighting for the British allowed to move to Canada? Canada after the war. So the card kind of references, yes, there was a colony in Canada that was it New Brunswick? Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia is the Canadian province where many black people did move. The ones who, again, the card alluded to, like, not everyone was given what they were promised. What else is new, government? But there was I don't want to say a colony. It was the province of Nova Scotia had an area, a colony, if you will, of emancipated former slaves from the rebellious American states. Great. Let's see what's next. We are doing awesome. This is a lot of fun. Again, for those of you popping in, we got a prize this week. It's not much, but it's a magnet of the George Washington headquarters flag, and it's not too late to catch up. Now we are 5 questions in, which means we've got 7 left. That's plenty of time to catch up to Adam, who's got a nice lead, but not insurmountable. Let's go. What future president wintered with General George Washington and the Continental Army in the bitter cold of 1777 at Valley Forge, PA? The question is, and I am going to stall to give you time to answer, what future president spent the winter of 77/78 with George Washington and the rest of the main Continental Army at Valley Forge in Pennsylvania. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Cheers. I cheers myself. What do you know? I see Matt coming in real quick with an answer, and I have a sneaking suspicion he's right. Because after George Washington, we have John Adams, not in the war, Thomas Jefferson, not in the war, James Madison, not in the war, James Monroe, in the war, wounded severely before this at Trenton or Princeton, Jersey, between Trenton and Princeton. I always forget which one it was Monroe was hurt at. The first one, I think it was Trenton. And then like John Quincy Adams was a boy, and then Andrew Jackson, who was wounded in the war but doesn't count. So I'm going to read it because I think it's right. It's got to be James Monroe. What do you know? Future 5th President of the United States, joined the Continental Army as a teenager. That's right, he left college. Before he turned 20, he had risen to the rank of major, an honor he achieved just before and during bad weather and poor supply situation at Valley Forge. Monroe was alongside George Washington at the Battle of Trenton a year earlier when Patriot troops crossed the icy Delaware River on Christmas night for the famed surprise attack against the British. A stunning success. The Revolutionaries easily captured Trenton at the cost of very few casualties, but Monroe was one of 4 unlucky Americans wounded. He was gravely injured in the shoulder while leading an attack on an enemy cannon. Before he resigned his military post and began his career in law and politics, Monroe fought for the colonists' independence at numerous locations including Harlem Heights, White Plains, Brandywine, Germantown, and Monmouth. Excuse me. Whoa. That's a lot to come out. That is a lot to get out. That was a lot to get out. Yes. It was Mr. President James Monroe, who was a warrior. People like to forget. James Monroe is one of the most underappreciated American founders. He fought in the war as a teenager. He almost had his arm blown off by a cannon. Somehow survived and kept his arm. Goes through the war. Ends up going to the Revolution. After the Revolution, becomes an anti-federalist. And is actually propped up after the Constitution is ratified. There are still a lot of Virginian leaders who don't like it. And Patrick Henry works it out so that James Madison writes the Constitution, thinks he's going to be an original senator, and is rejected by Virginia's government. And then he runs for the House of Representatives, and to try and stop him, to get revenge, Patrick Henry puts James Monroe to run against James Madison as the initial representative of their part of Virginia in the United States House of Representatives. And it was close. Luckily, they were friendly and rode together. They didn't agree on politics, but they would later, of course. Monroe would help Madison win the War of 1812 and succeed him as president, and then lead the era of good feelings, which from my perspective is really kind of where the American Revolution ends. It's like everything calms down for a little bit. We're here, we're a country, it happened, it's done. And then, of course, that's when the Marquis de Lafayette comes back for his famous tour. So I'm going to mark down real quick. We got some answers here. Matt, coming in hot. Troy, we got to come back. Lauren, like I said before, Jackson is a great guess because Andrew Jackson was wounded during the American Revolution, but he didn't actually winter at Valley Forge, which is where the trick comes in. He was also a very young man. Andrew Jackson was given a scar on his face by a British officer with his sword as a child. He was like 13. And then within the year, his brother and mom die. His dad had already died very early on from a tree falling on his head. So he's orphaned and scarred and hates the British as a kid, but is just, and I may not be the biggest Andrew Jackson fan, but he is super brilliant and becomes a lawyer by the time he turns 20. And by the time he's 25, he's already the first Attorney General of Tennessee while it's still a territory, and then ends up being its first and only member of the United States House of Representatives when it's first achieved. Tennessee had so few people when it was first a state. It had 2 senators like everyone else and only 1 person in the House of Representatives, and that was Andrew Jackson. And I actually wrote a bunch of articles a while back kind of looking at the question, does Andrew Jackson count as a founding father? Listen to what I just told you. Wounded in the war. As Tennessee becomes a state in 17 May of 1796. So George Washington is still president, and here's Andrew Jackson in the House of Representatives during George Washington's administration. He goes on to give President Jefferson, a little bit of trouble, give James Madison a good amount of trouble, but wins in spirit, wins him that war. Yeah. Andrew Jackson's a super interesting character, but the result is we realized with discussion of you fine people and the Twitter, Andrew Jackson is not an American founder despite all that, because when he's president in the 1830s, he starts the Age of Jackson. And while I don't really love sectioning things off in history books into sections, if you get a whole age of American history named after you, you're not a part of the age before that. You just can't be a founder and have your own age. It's just not fair. So anyway, yes, Troy, vindictive politics started early. There was a lot of tough times back then. But what's interesting is, for the most part, as I said, like Madison and Monroe were kindly to each other. Madison would bring Monroe into his administration 10, 20 plus years later. So they would agree that they hated what Alexander Hamilton had to say. Okay, let's go to the next question. Excuse me. Who created the song Yankee Doodle, and for what reason? Was it created during the American Revolution? That second question kind of makes the first one a lot obvious. This is a tough one. I am a, we'll say, mediocre musician, and I should know that. I was actually thinking about creating like an intro to my videos that played like a part of Yankee Doodle, which I still might, but because it's in the public domain, I can't get sued by anyone. Spoiler alert. I see some answers coming in. Matt saying the British. I would assume that if my memory serves, and I'm not sure, I do believe Yankee Doodle was created, was a British song. I think it came from a different melody. They like to reuse melodies back then and repurpose them with different lyrics. And I believe that they reused an old melody from some song I don't remember the name of. And the British created Yankee Doodle, making fun of the British, making fun of the Patriots. I mean, a Yankee then, as of now, really meant Northerner. I know New York's baseball team is called the Yankee, but which I can never understand, because Yankee is really more New England than New York, but I'll let that slide. But I do believe it was a British song. Yankee Doodle and macaroni was a similar word. Like they say Yankee Doodle dandy, and macaroni was another word for dandy back then. Just someone who dressed to the nines. It might have the word dandy still is kind of in the lexicon. Not really. We don't really use it anymore, but I'm sure you've heard it, and macaroni has the same thing. I'm going to stop talking and just read the answer. That's as close a guess as I'm going to get. Well, these cards are old. They're all stuck together. Although the melody had likely been around for much longer, the song is usually attributed to Richard Shuckburgh, a British military surgeon. He is widely believed to have created the first verses during the French and Indian War in 1755. Shuckburgh's song made fun of the Yankees, or New Englanders, who were fighting alongside the British, but were perceived as disorganized, uneducated, inexperienced, and lacking sophistication. The lyrics were amusing and disparaging. At the time, doodle commonly meant fool. During the Revolutionary War, the British played the song to insult the colonists, but the rebels reclaimed it, adding new verses and using it to rally and to express a patriotic spirit. After the Battle of Lexington and Concord, where both British and Revolutionary forces played the tune as they marched, and where the American militia surprised the British to retreat towards Boston, one British officer remarked of his men, "Yankee Doodle sounds less sweet to their ears. For the colonists, the song only became sweeter." A lot to unpack there. That's very interesting. First of all, I did not realize that that both armies were playing it. that the British were playing it like, aha, ha ha, sucks to be you, and the Americans were like, no, it's ours now. That's super interesting. I never heard of Richard Shuckburgh, but I am definitely going to look into that name, and don't be surprised if he gets an article in the next few weeks, because first of all, great name. Second of all, he's the one who wrote Yankee Doodle. As I like to call them, accidental founders. There are many founders I don't, and again, I don't know anything about Richard Shuckburgh. I don't even know if he was in America. If he was a British military surgeon, he probably went back to Britain after 1755. 20 years later, did he even come back to North America? I don't know. Don't know if he ever left. Don't know anything about him. I'm going to look it up. That's a lot of fun. I do see Matthew saying British. That is clearly the correct answer. Doodle is fool. I forgot to mention that. And it's interesting here that they talk about how in the French and Indian War, the British looked down on the Americans. What they called them was disorganized, uneducated, inexperienced, and lacking sophistication. And what's funny about that is I've read on several occasions, this is one of the unsung reasons of the American Revolution was earlier, you have people like George Washington and major important members of the militias of the colonists fighting right alongside the British regulars during the French and Indian War, and they were treated like garbage. One of the things, there's this book, John Stark. I might have mentioned this book last week. This book, Stark, the life. You probably can't even read it because the lights make it hard to see. But it's called Stark: The Life and Wars of John Stark. General John Stark, a very important founder from New Hampshire. Sorry if I'm getting distant. Very important founder from New Hampshire. That book talks about first the French and Indian War and his involvement in it, then the American Revolution and his involvement in that. And it goes into detail about how the Americans were like angry at the British for like treating the British regulars, I should say, for treating them as second-class citizens. And yes, I know the irony that these second-class citizens were holding people in bondage and treating women like children. But they were upset about that. And it is one of, it wasn't just taxes. The American Revolution wasn't just, I don't want to pay my taxes. Yes, there were several taxes that were considered very unfair. And there were also several taxes. There were several other things. The fact that they won this French and Indian War, and now they wanted this land to the west of Appalachia, and the king said no. And several other things, one of which was the British really looked down at us. They really looked down at us, but we're British. We're British citizens. Why can't we serve as good as they can in the military? We live here. We know the terrain. Yada, yada, yada. And I do see some things coming in. Matt, the Brits can't be a founder. Well, first of all, I am going to give you a check because you actually answered with the Brits. Matt, coming up from behind. Adam, I don't know if you're still hanging around. Matt's catching up to you, dude. You are still here, Adam. Should throw one in there. It's 3-3. We got, we'll go through it real quick. We'll go through it. We got Adam and Matt with 3 points each. Lauren and Troy with 2, and Cal with the 1. You guys want to catch up? I think there's still time because we've done, how many have we done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we got 5 more. Oh, there's plenty of time to catch up. That is interesting. Adam, I agree. That's why I said it. Matt, Brits can't be founders. Well, almost all of these people were born as Brits, I would argue, as would they. That's why there's the clause in the Constitution, if you were to be president, you have to be 35 and a natural born citizen, or be a citizen of a state at the time they signed the Constitution. just put that out there. Troy, surprised it was that early. I always figured it was a post-revolution song. No, Yankee Doodle was sung at the time. Many songs and flags came later to associate with and celebrate the American Revolution, but Yankee Doodle is one of them. Matt, is this a good book? Oof, it's. I was just repeating something I read in it, so it's super informative. It is. I've never been the biggest fan of military history. It is, as far as a biography go, the closest thing to a military history I've ever read in biography form, if that makes any sense. It's not a military history. It's a biography of John Stark. It's super interesting, especially because he lived on the New Hampshire frontier. So the author goes to great lengths to learn about his life, cobbling together what's available from the frontier. And it's a little easier to do that because Stark led a very interesting life. That being said, in no disrespect to the author, it's a little slow for my taste. But again, if you read military histories and that's something you enjoy, I never enjoyed military history. I only got into it when I started Founder of the Day because I felt it was my duty to learn more about it. If I'm going to be talking about it on camera and writing articles about it, I've gone out of my way to make myself learn that. And as I have, I've become more knowledgeable and therefore more interested, of course. If you like military histories and biographies, or if you like biographies and military histories, then yes, you will definitely really, really enjoy that book. It's from my perspective, it's a little like tactics heavy, but again, the first half is French and Indian War, and Robert Rogers of the Queen's Rangers, who ends up being a loyalist during the American Revolution. But if you've seen the show Turn, there's a character with his name in that show who's a major character. He's a giant part of the first half of that book. Is he and Stark worked very closely together for a long time. So I hope that answered your question. It's a very informative book. As I said, I've referenced it. I think I referenced it last week too. So, but is it my favorite book? No, it's a little slow for my taste. But I bought it and I like it. Definitely don't want to insult anyone. Have to make it sporting. Yeah, we're making it fun this week. You gotta make it a little competitive. I mean, I'm gonna mail someone this. It's a magnet of Washington's flag from Liberty & Co. I will restate my favorite, not sponsored, my favorite purveyor of American Revolution merchandise. Let's go. Next question. How many countries was Britain at war? Oh, let me say this again. With how many countries was Britain at war during the American Revolution? I could also have said, how many countries was Britain at war with during the American Revolution? That's an interesting question. I'm going to take a sip of coffee while you guys throw some answers. I'm going to run it through my head. Because, like, it was the empire that the sun never set on. So, I don't know. Were they fighting with Japan at the time? Like, it's Britain. Matt, you give me two answers. I'm going to go with the last one you put. Right now, you're sitting at 4. Plenty of time to change it. Lauren, going with the same answer. I like it. You can't lose ground if you give the same answer. I like your strategy. Obviously, they were at war with the United States. I'm assuming they count the United States as a country in this question. Although technically it wasn't until British recognized them as a country. It's really tough here. I will say France ends up joining the war. Spain never really officially comes in on the side of the American Revolutionaries, but they do take advantage of the war and do fight them. So Spain's in there. So it's America, Spain, France. I know most of the Scandinavian countries, along with Russia and much of we'll say Eastern Europe, they sided with Catherine the Great. Put together something called the League of Armed Neutrality, which was kind of like a mutually assured destruction plan she came up with, where she got a bunch of weaker countries who could not handle the British Navy or the French Navy or the Spanish Navy even at that point. And she got them all to put their navies together and say, listen, if one of us gets attacked, we all get attacked. But none of us are going to attack anyone. We have no interest in starting a war. None of us want to start a war. But if someone tries to start a war with one of us or screw with our trade on the open seas, we're not going to let that happen. And we will all join together as one navy, an army too. But the navy was what was important at the time. So that means I'm at 3. Now, are they counting the Native American nations? And if they count Native Americans, all of them separately, it'd be racist not to. It'd be like, gotta count them separately. Though the majority of the Native Americans did side with the British because the British were promising them that they would not take their land. And whether or not they'd keep that promise didn't matter. The Americans had no interest in making a promise of that nature at all. But I just, Portugal wasn't there. It feels like it should be more than 3. Matt's saying the Netherlands. So the Netherlands were like giving loans to the Americans, but the Netherlands, I mean, it was the Dutch East India Company that the British was profiting off of so much. So, like, I'd have trouble thinking it was the Netherlands. Okay, so what country does India count as a country? No, I wrote about this recently, Adam. A few months ago, Pondicherry is the city in India. India was broken up into many colonies, much like the United States was. Some owned by France, some owned by England, blah blah blah. So if we don't count the USA, okay, I'm gonna say we're counting the USA in all of our answers here. So Adam, I'll give you 4. I'm saying 3. We got a few 3s, a few 4s. Let's see what the answer is already. Stop wasting time, Jay Mandresh. And the answer is 4. I was wrong, and many of you were righter than me. Britain's rebellious New World colonies declared independence, blah, blah, blah. Colonies have been a source of trouble. But the outlook became bleaker from the empire, where France, Spain, and the Dutch Republic all successively went to war with Britain. That's super interesting. I guess I never put together that the Netherlands actually declared war. I was under the impression they were kind of behind-the-scenes helper. 4 months after an encounter in the American victory, blah, 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 Lafayette, yada, yada. In June, Spain entered the war in France in October of 1777, Spain in 1779. In 1780, the Dutch Republic and Britain went to war over shipping disputes. Oh, at the same time, the British forces were required in India. Thanks for pointing out India, Adam. British forces required in India where local rulers such as the Hyder Ali struggled against the Raj. So the India was kind of a rebellion, kind of like what was going on in the United States. That's right. The Dutch. Okay, so the Dutch had like a mini war with Britain, but they didn't join the American Revolutionary War. That threw me off. Well, my mistake. I told you I'd be embarrassed about somewhere in here. I was told you like the warfare was never my thing. So let's see. So technically the answer is 4, including the USA. So, right? Yes. So we got a lot of right answers on this one, except for me. Oh, Netherlands! That's going to start becoming a reoccurring thing on this channel. Is I'm going to be mad at the Netherlands about things. And I have considered making videos about the Netherlands more, because what I do know about the Netherlands is their association with loaning us money, loaning the Americans money to fight and win the war, much to the hard work of one John Adams. Well, I'm checking off our answers. If you guys haven't hit like yet, now would be a great time. More times you hit like, more people are going to come hang out in the future because YouTube will tell them to come. Lauren got 1. Troy, 3. Hey, I said 3 too, man. Adam, you did clarify that you want... Did I give you... No, I did not. You did clarify. And Matthew, I think, said 4. Yes, sir. There it is. All right. As we are now, we have Adam and Matthew tied with 4 correct answers each. Lauren with 3, Troy with 2, and Cal with 1. But how many questions? How many have we asked? We're doing 12. 12 is answers. Thank you for the likes, guys. Look at that right away. What a team. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, man. We're only 2/3 done. And we're an hour in. All right. I'll try and speed these up a little bit. I don't want to keep you guys all night. That means it's anyone's game right now. So let's get our heads in that game and rock on. Another like. Thank you, guys. You're the best. Which well-known Patriot leader's son was a Loyalist? Oh, which well-known Patriot leader's son was a Loyalist? There are several answers to this, except it says well-known, so there's only one answer, and you either know it or you don't. You're going to throw it out here right now. while I sip actual water because I am really red. One cheek is red. Oh, no, they're both red. Okay. Don't look at me. I'm hideous. Giving you guys a second. I see you're letting Matt answer, and then you can just say the same answer, and you're going to not get it wronger. That's for darn sure. I will give you a hint. His grandson, it was a founder whose son was a loyalist, and that son's son was a patriot. And everyone's coming in with it. And it's going to be hard to get it wrong if you know. You guys are right. Ben Franklin's son, William Franklin, was a loyalist. He wasn't just any loyalist. He was royal governor of New Jersey. A pretty good gig. Why would you want to give that up and try and throw off the king? Especially when, to be fair, your father wasn't necessarily the quickest one to join the revolution. He happened to be, living in London when it started. To be fair, Ben Franklin was speaking on behalf of the colonies. And that's much like his son, one of the reasons he didn't want to leave. But we do have 3 correct answers here. Let's see. We got... Oh, Adam, where are you? You got to keep up, man. You got to keep up. You're losing your lead. We got Matt. We got Troy. And we got Lauren. All right, Matt. We got 5. We got Adam and Lauren with 4. Troy with 3. Cal with 1. Not too late. Your favorite book is Ben Franklin's bio, the autobiography? Oh, Adam, you're coming in too late. I already said it. Man. I'm sorry. I can't. You gotta get it in before I start talking. I'm giving you guys time. Please don't unsubscribe. I don't want to make anyone mad here. This is all for fun. I promise you. I assure you. I'm a very nice guy. Unless you know me personally. Ben Franklin, not a lot to say. Again, I don't want to take up all night, but not a ton to say about it. There is a cool song. There is a band called the Decemberists, who I'm a fan of. They write Americana type music, kind of acoustic based, but a variety of instruments. The singer uses like a lot of old timey words. It's fun, but they actually work with, I'm sure you know of the play Hamilton, and there was these extra Hamilton songs that have come out that aren't actually in the play, and there's one that Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote with. It may have written by himself, but it's performed by the Decemberists. It's called Ben Franklin's Song. I will warn you, for whatever reason, there's a lot of vulgarity. They say the F word a lot in the chorus. There are clean versions I recommend you look up if you have children around. But it's just a song from the perspective of Ben Franklin, who was largely left out of the play Hamilton, and it's really good. And one of the lines in the song, forgive me if I saying it wrong, he says something, and then my son back at home, who I could not guide, sits in a prison cell on the wrong side. Which, it's great. It's great. And then he says, my children will be upset at my sins. Anyway, this is a question we literally just answered. Oh, I didn't even read the back. We get it. Everyone got it. Oh, I got a cat coming in to hang out. I hope that's okay with you. Which of the original 13 colonies was never invaded by the British? That is an extraordinarily fun question. Which of the 13 colonies was not invaded by the British? And while you guys are submitting your correct answers, I will remind you, Vermont does not count as an original 13 colony. And I don't believe Vermont was invaded by the British. It was invaded during the Civil War. There's a strange battle I don't know enough about. But go on. Let me know which colony was never invaded by the British. Give you another hint. We already discussed how Connecticut was invaded when Sybil Ludington went on her ride. Now that invasion was hours long, but it was there. Oh, and that's actually not true, because at one point, actually, Benedict Arnold goes back to his hometown after he goes to the British side, and is part of the not Groton, Griswold. I think it's the Griswold massacre, I believe it's called, where Benedict Arnold was on one side of the river and he had other soldiers on the other side. And to be fair, it wasn't Arnold. The other side, the soldiers on the other side, committed certain atrocities. And then by the time Benedict Arnold got there, he tried to put a stop to it. We got a variety of answers. We've got New Hampshire, Georgia, Kentucky, and Savannah. Okay, so Savannah is in Georgia and was taken before the British took Charleston. Georgia was invaded pretty easily. It's why we miss it in our history books. It happened real quick before the British went to there. Lauren, Kentucky's like Virginia or Vermont. Not technically an original 13 colony. Kentucky's number 15. Matt, I would think I'm probably going to have to agree with you. I believe it's New Hampshire. I don't think the British ever actually stormed New Hampshire. That being said, they did. Portsmouth was very nervous at the time because they did invade Maine on many accounts, but Maine was part of Massachusetts. So I am going to think. Are these stuck together? Well, I just found out the answer to the next question on accident. Whoopsie doopsie. Only New Hampshire escaped British invasion. The other colonies, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, all had to cope with British encroachment. New Jersey had the lamentable distinction, as we discussed last week, of enduring the most scuffles, over 200 battles. As the British and Continental troops moved together, blah, 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 although northern colonies are perhaps better remembered for their roles, like in Lexington and Concord or Valley Forge, many battles took place in the South. There were sieges on Savannah and Charleston, the Battle of Yorktown. New Hampshire colony never saw action during the war. The area did contribute militia, yada, 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 yada. We all love New Hampshire, blah, 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 blah. I somehow managed to be 1 minute and 7 seconds behind the stream. Oh, man, I'm sorry. I didn't even consider that. Well, Matt, you get one. That's number 6. And you know what, Adam? You got 0.5 before anyway for answering the one with all the answers. You got a bunch of those right, so I'll give you a half of one here. Okay? I know I'm not being fair, but, you know, these things happen. You deal with it. So let's carry on and get through it because we're already 1 minute and 7 seconds. Oh, they shelled Savannah. Oh, I'm guessing you're referencing Savannah. You guys are all a little bit behind me. What battle claimed more lives through heat and sunstroke than through bullets? Arguably. What battle had more men killed in the field from the blazing hot sun than from actually getting killed in battle? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, here we go. Put your answers in. Putting them in. And I saw the answer before, though I do know this one, and it's fairly famous. Seeing no answers come in. Okay, Troy with an answer. I got one. I'm not exactly sure how far ahead. I think it's about 10 seconds that I am from you. That's just, I need to spend some cash and get a better graphics card to upgrade my system. If you want to help offset expenses, feel free to check out my Patreon page with the link below. I know we got at least one Patriot here, as I call my Patriot patrons on Patreon, Matt, who's helping support the channel. If you guys want to check out the link, we just got another one today. Someone masquerading as Ben Franklin. Any support you want to give would be super appreciated because it just offsets the expense from computer, microphone, all the yada yada yada. The answers are in. The answer is the Battle of Monmouth. Thank you, Troy. Gets the right answer this time. The Battle of Monmouth in New Jersey, which took place on June 28th, 1778, occurred in sweltering heat. Temperatures likely topped 100 degrees, and more men died from sunstroke than from enemy fire. Literally just dropping during the battle. Legend holds that even General George Washington's horse was overcome by heat. Braving the scorching weather alongside the men was a woman who followed her husband into combat, Mary Ludwig Hayes, who I am yet to write about. Nicknamed Molly Pitcher, although several other women also at times were nicknamed Molly Pitcher, but not to take away from her. She delved into the water she delivered water to the wounded and heat-stricken, but upon noticing that her husband could no longer man his position, She took his place at cannon and, according to some stories, lost parts of her petticoat, but luckily not a limb, to a British shot. The battle ended in a draw because of the heat, which was very frustrating to the British. Many of their best troops participated, but the Americans continued to repel attack after attack. Both armies soldiered on through the stifling heat until darkness fell, at which time the British quietly stole away. I do want to note Mary Pitcher, Molly Pitcher. Mary Ludwig Hayes is considered Molly Pitcher. There are other women, notably not Martha Bratton. Oh man, the name is gonna kill me. I'm gonna pull it up here because I can't remember every name in the American Revolution, even when it's a super important woman. I'm just terrible. And it's bugging me, so I have to look it up. But she, when she comes up, was Margaret Cochran Corbin. Margaret Cochran Corbin was in the north at the Battle of Fort Washington that the British eventually won. She, her husband was there. So what Molly Pitchers generally did, what many women did as camp followers, they would get a thing of water and bring it out to the men fighting for them to drink. But also because the cannons, boom, going off were so hot that you needed to pour water on them to cool them down. And so what they would do, especially in the, I know a lot more about Margaret Cochran Corbin, even though I forgot her name, than I do about Mary Hayes. But Margaret Cochran Corbin would, as with many camp followers, would watch the men drill in their off time. So that's what they did. They got no TV or internet, so they would watch them drill. So she watched them fire the cannons and knew how they operated. And she was there, and she was bringing water out when she saw that her husband was an artilleryman fighting with a cannon, defending Fort Washington, and the man he was fighting with died. He got killed. And she sees that, and she's bringing out water. So she goes out and helps her husband fire the cannon. And then he dies. And instead of like stopping to mourn her husband that just exploded in front of her, she proceeds to continue firing the cannon by herself and is eventually wounded in the arm and is dragged off the field by fellow soldiers and ends up getting captured by the British that day. But Margaret Cochran Corbin, she was an injured woman. The British didn't really, she wasn't a very good bargaining chip, but they also weren't going to just execute a woman. I mean, they were being sexist about it, today they probably should not say that. But they sent her back to the British. She goes down to Philly, and she actually ends up becoming the first woman to receive a pension from the United States of America for her services in war. Unlike Deborah Sampson, who fooled her way in, pretended to be a man to fight in the war, Margaret Cochran Corbin was put in this situation kind of on accident, and the leaders of America did reward her for that, because she ended up like not having use of her arm for the rest of her life and lived kind of in squalor. I do want to say I did see a Monmouth in there. I always want to say Muth. Troy, playing comeback 4. It's close. Matt's in the lead. Sorry, not Charleston. Don't know that one. No clue. When I was in the Army, the artillery still honored Mary Pitcher, as very well they should. I don't know a lot about the Civil War. That's what I meant to say. I don't know a lot about women participating in the Civil War, but I would be surprised if there were not Molly Pitchers at that time, because they were still using the same type of artillery. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We are up to the last question. And Matt's in the lead by 1. But you know what? I'm going to be a game show host about it. I'm going to make this question worth 2 points. Just throwing that out there. Which means, it won't end in a tie. Okay. Or actually, it could. But that means people would jump up from behind. Let's go. These cards are real old, have not been used. They're all stuck together. So, if you guys are ready, without further ado, I'm going to make you wait patiently while I drink this. The suspense. I could have been a game show host. I knew it. All this time studying history. Could have had other people study it for me, and I just asked the questions. All right. Are you ready? Great. What is a blunderbuss? Not much to that question. I'll give you guys a little bit of time. I'm actually going to read through the back a little bit on my own. Yep. Okay. No, I'm not going to read the back. It's throwing me off. I knew the answer. It's a short question. It's a short answer. It's a lot of fun, Matt. That's definitely true. It's definitely a lot of fun, I would presume, except how dangerous it may be. Give you guys another second. I mean, unless you're all just gonna bail and let Matt run away, as you guys are typing in your answers, I am gonna note that Matt does appear to be in the lead with 6 points. Adam with 5, Troy with 4, Troy and Lorne with 4, and Cal with Uno. Although Cal seems to have bailed on us a while back. Let's see. Oh, more questions coming in. We got Matt with a gun. Troy with the type of musket. Adam with a smooth-bore firearm that can be loaded with shot. And Lorne, short muzzle load gun. I'll be honest with you, I don't know as much about weaponry as you gentlemen do, apparently. Because I'm with Matt. The answer is a gun. Adam, it is loaded with, I do believe it's loaded with shot. Well, shot is like, okay. Like a shotgun, like, spreads out as opposed to a bullet. That a musket, I think, would load. So, before I start giving out points, I am going to read what's on the back, because the back of the card will definitely know more about firearms than I do in particular. Although if you're on Instagram, I started following someone recently who I don't know, but I believe they're called Muzzle Shot. I'll have to look it up. No. But there's people who shoot old-timey guns. Anyway, a blunderbuss is a weapon. We were all wrong. It's not a gun, it's a weapon. Okay, just kidding. More specifically, a flintlock firearm that was commonly used during the American Revolution, particularly aboard naval vessels. It has a trumpet-shaped barrel to facilitate loading and discharges shot made up of lead balls. The other material, lead balls or other materials like nails, gravel, or glass. Ugh. An imprecise weapon, the blunderbuss was usually reserved for close-quarter combat, like a shotgun. It was also effective for firing at a group. Or a bug that comes into your house when you're live on the internet. It was effective for firing at a group, such as a boarding party on a ship. Alternatively, soldiers fighting on land often carried a flintlock musket and a bayonet for trading volleys in lines and columns. Muskets were used in formation, as they too delivered a rather inexact shot and were therefore best employed against an enemy group. The word blunderbuss, due to its association with an inaccurate weapon and a similarity to the word blunder, came to mean a clumsy or stupid person as well. That's super interesting. I never realized blunder was part of blunderbuss. Because they're terrible weapons. We all learned something today. I guess it's not technically a musket. I don't know. Someone said something about a musket. Lots of fun. Thanks, Troy. No, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I think it had the funnel looking thing. The blunderbusses were the ones, they look like a horn. Like, you know what? Let me see if I can pull up a picture of it. Blunderbuss. Come on, Google. Give us some images. Here we go. Oh, excuse me. Where is my... There we go. Well, we're here. Look, see, this is why I invested in the new program. In case I want to do something like this. So this is what my imagination thinks looks like. Can I move me? Okay. How weird does that look? This is what they look like in my imagination. I guess I imagine them as a little bit longer, but I guess they are a handheld weapon. In Range has a few videos lately on blunderbusses. Thank you, Adam. In Range. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Oh, funnel looking thing at the end. Yes, Matt. Exactly. The real ones don't seem to be so cartoony as that first one I pulled up. But they are certainly there. All right. And I'll bring myself back up because we're not looking at stuff today. We're just doing trivia. So let's see. Everyone got it right. I wish the last question was a little more difficult. But I'll give Cal a point. Two, yeah, I'll give him one, even though everyone else gets 2 points. And I think I counted wrong at the end there. But if I get your number of points wrong, forgive me. I didn't add 2. I think I added 2 to all of them just now, but I'm not a good adder. But we have a very good competition today. Primarily, it's Adam, Lauren, Troy, and Matt. We're really the only ones giving answers, but this is amazing because in third place, we have a tie between Lauren and Troy with 6 correct answers. In second place, we have Adam with 7, and in first place, we have Matt with 8. So between the 4 of you, there was a 2-point difference in the top and bottom scores. Well done, guys. Well done. Because I didn't even get them all right either. But Matt coming in late, if I'm not mistaken. Really coming in hot. Well played. Matt, this is your prize. I don't know how I'm going to get it to you. I understand if you don't feel comfortable throwing it up here. Adam being a good sport. Well done, Adam. You can get at me if Patreon. You can, Matt. I know you message me all over the place. So Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, any place you want to message me. If you want to give me your home address, if you're comfortable with that. I'm not a trustworthy character, so I understand if you know it. But if you don't, you cannot have your prize. Guys, thank you so much. Definitely come back next week. Now, before we go, Lauren, I hope you're still here, Lauren, because you did ask about tattoos. So real briefly, I don't want to keep you guys all night, but real briefly, I did want to kind of respond to the question about tattoos during the American Revolution last week. I didn't do a ton of research, but a few things. First of all, tattoos were used as symbols for people. For example, after the Boston Massacre, most of the British officers got off because the hard work of John Adams and not Robert Treat Paine. He was on the other side. Oh, it's bugging me. One of the Otises. No. Okay, never mind. One of the Warrens. John Adams and someone else who, I apologize, I forget their name. Some of those soldiers were convicted, though. They were given light sentences, which basically consists of go back to Britain and get a tattoo on their hand to indicate that they had gotten into some trouble. Furthermore, I do have to note, many Native American tribes had a variety of tattoos that they used for a variety of reasons. Additionally, pirates were still a thing leading up to and during the American Revolution, and many of them did have tattoos. And the one thing I looked up that was very interesting is impressment was always a problem. And I'll remind you, impressment was when you were an American sailor on an American ship, and then your ship got kind of captured by the British, and the British took you into to their army and made you serve in the British Navy. Now, many of these soldiers on American ships had notes written for them by their country, not just America, but other countries as well. Your country would write you a letter of marque, generally speaking, that said, hey, this is this person, this is who they are, this is what they look like, so you cannot impress them into your army. And something they did is they wrote, the men would get tattoos, as sailors now traditionally are associated with. It wasn't always the anchor like Popeye necessarily, but they got tattoos specific to them, and those tattoos would be used, would be identified in the papers that were written for them, so that if their ship was captured, they would hand that paper that identified their tattoo to the American, their captor, to prevent impressment. So there are actually I'd say hundreds of different letters discussing the tattoos of specific people to ensure their safety and their safe passage. So I did look into that. I wanted to bring that back up. Great question, Lauren. I can go into it further in another video if you like. Other than that, great job, guys. Lots of fun. I had a blasty blast. I don't know if you did. There's still a bunch of you here hanging out, so I assume I'm not the only one having a good time. I'm glad this Friday thing is working out. So again, we're gonna do it next Friday. We got half a deck left, so I will see you guys there. If you guys have any more questions you want to throw out at the end, now's a great time. But I do see people trickling out, so I will also probably trickle out myself. I'm gonna sip on this water and say adieu. Oh, Lauren, just for info, parents are from Herkimer, New York, and I grew up in Niagara Falls. Thanks for the tattoo talk. Oh, no worries. Lauren, very cool. Herkimer. My spouse works for a company. She kind of works more out of her car than out of the house, but she actually works in Central New York and the Mohawk Valley. And she finds herself in Herkimer several times a month, actually. So very, very cool. You grew up in Niagara Falls, not in Buffalo so much. Matt, I'm not sure what you're getting at here. Preston? Do you want me to talk about William Prescott again? Or is Preston... Do I look like a Preston? I'm not against that name. It's not a bad name. I just am really not sure what we're trying to do here. Are you saying presto because it was magic how good you did in the quiz? It's a little much. Preston Adams. You're losing me. Well, you won the quiz, so now you're just looking down on the rest of us. You're just saying fancy words and confusing us plebeians. I'm sure it'll come through. Again, I will chat for a second and see if you can clarify what we're getting at here. But yeah, Lord, I don't know if you still live in upstate New York, but I love it here. It's autumn, and it is beautiful. It's the 2 weeks where the leaves change between blazing hot summers and freezing to death winters. And it couldn't be better. Couldn't be happier. All right, I'm running out of things to say. It has been an hour and a half of pretty constant talking and a beet red face. Realizing when I set this up and I put it on more of a red hue than a blue one, it's probably a bad choice when I turn super red. Although if it was blue, it'd probably be even worse. I don't know what was it? Round bottom, Matt. Okay, Matt's calling it for us. Thank you, Matt, for stepping up and calling it for the team. I'm going to say round bottom. Thank you so much for coming here. If you're new here, definitely subscribe because we do this stuff every Friday from now on, from my perspective. And if you haven't hit like yet, please hit like on your way out. It just helps so much. And if you want to support the channel, don't forget to check out the Patreon page. I put a bunch of videos on there. It's been a while. I am Matt, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Gonna put a new video out tomorrow. Hope you guys like it. I'm about to start putting actually some polls out there to see, state by state, which founders you might be interested in learning more about. So definitely check that out. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you for staying. Thank you for leaving. Thank you for being amazing. And round bottom.